Good afternoon. May I introduce myself? I am Norah, a Jungian analyst working with adults. I've always been interested in both developmental and archetypal aspects of Jung's thinking, and I use both these ways of looking at things in my work, and I take that for granted in this talk. My title is Jung and Woman's Search for Meaning. In the leaflet about the talk, I said, does today's woman need to make sense of her life? Is it the same for women as for men? Life is a challenge, whether we tread in light or in dark places. Come and talk about what Jung has to say about it. That was in the leaflet. I nearly added, come and talk about what he said of the masculine and feminine archetypes in everyone's unconscious, and the spiral journey that leads up and down towards realization of the potentiality of the self. You may wonder what I mean by a search for meaning, but I guess most people come up against it as an urgent quest at some time or other in their lives. In this talk, I won't be giving you Jung's blueprint for finding meaning, if there is such a thing, but I will explore one or two images and see where they take us. I want to begin with two images that arrived one day in the dreams of two women. Two images, yet they were very similar. They were important because each was an image from the deepest part of the unconscious and told of something that was unknown. The first was of a shining crystal that seemed to make sense of all the present hopes and uncertainties, of all the failures, losses and problems, drawing them all together so that they could be held in the palm of the hand. The second image was of a fox's head, all made of long crystals lying close together like a quartz lump, with beautiful colours but sharp edges. It was puzzling, but seemed to hold a hope for the future, and to have a deep meaning at present out of reach. It reminded me of a cubist picture by Braque, with everything resolved into hard shapes, like crystals in a geode. That is one sort of image. The second picture I want to hang out in front of you, so to speak, was something I saw on the television recently. A month or two ago, New Zealand celebrated the 150th anniversary of the arrival of the white settlers. And when I was watching the live program on the television, I heard a Maori woman speaking about her people's search for meaning. There was the Earth Mother and the Sky Father, she said, and all the people sprang from their union, and their life and religion was closely linked to the land they lived on. Then the immigrants brought civilization, but took away our Maori land and the Maori soul with it. How, she asked, were she and her brothers and sisters to find their place in the modern world without losing their roots in the land and in nature? This spoke to me in a more immediate and human way than the crystal dreams, which were condensed and brilliantly hard like minerals or like ultimate truth, and packed with meaning that had to be mined out. I recognized in myself the truth of the crystals, but I had a ready empathy with a Maori woman because we all have experience that have natural roots, but also a divisive nature, as she had. We all have our myths that try to make sense of life. For instance, daytime with its masculine consciousness and the bright sun, and the myths of the sun gods Apollo and Wotan. And there's darkness where the feminine mysterious moon holds sway, and the moon goddess Diana. Our problem is akin to that of the Maori woman. How to make sense of our deep identity with nature and the old fundamental beliefs, and yet live in a modern world. Traditionally, nature is seen as vying with culture, almost at war with it, and we are taught to find nature's best meaning in its taming and domestication. We tend to fear untamed nature. We explore the earth and map it. We fell the dark forests and capture the wild animals. It's only in recent years that value has been seen in untamed nature itself, like the tiger for William Blake. "Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night," he says. What then is woman's special search for the meaning of life? The problem is both an emotional and a social one. Throughout Western history since the Greeks, women have been equated with nature, and they have been seen as seducing and predatory tigers, as gates for the devil to enter. And seeing them in this light, men have feared and tried to tame them. The fear of witchcraft was an extreme example, but the fear is apparent in very many less extreme ways. Women in every culture have different roles from those of men, in communal life and in sexual relations. It's a universal experience to differ, but differences are not the same everywhere. There are different divisions of work and value in different cultures, and the sort of differentiation we live with in England is not a universally fixed, unalterable one. Jung saw the differences between men and women as fundamental and as rooted deep in unconscious patterns, those of the inborn archetypes, of anima in the man and animus in the woman. Everyone, he said, has the pattern of the opposite sex deep in their psyche. The more masculine a man may be, the stronger his unconscious feminine archetype. And vice versa, the more feminine a woman is on the surface, the stronger her unconscious masculine animus that balances her conscious attitude. These archetypal patterns are very strong. The fear I spoke of that men have felt for women is caused by the working of a negative side of the anima, for instance. When Jung wrote about the anima and animus, the Swiss society in which he lived was in many ways different from ours today. Women did not work outside the house as much as we do, nor did the men care for the children so much as a matter of course, and women expected to depend on men. Because of this, Jung's descriptions of anima and animus jar somewhat on modern ears. He described the anima rather in the same way that woman has been seen since the dawn of civilization, as a beautiful temptress who can inflame men and lead him on to the heights or to the depths, and who inspires him to reach for the sky in heightened consciousness, but is not very conscious herself. On the other hand, he depicted the animus in women as an overbearing parody of woman's strength, echoing there the threat that a woman might seem if she challenged a male society by expressing opinions, for instance. But he also stressed that the anima has a positive creative role as well. I should have said the animus. The animus has a positive creative role as well. Nowadays, the tendency in Jungian thinking is to see every person, whether man or woman, as having within him or her both these archetypal centres of anima and animus. Each of the sexes has both archetypes as an inner interacting pair, although the balance is usually towards one way or the other. The images by which we experience them have a different emphasis from those in Jung's day as well, because of our more modern society. But the essential polarities of deepest soul or self within us are fundamentally the same as they ever were, and produce the same conflicts and emotions and drives. Jung saw the psyche as containing both personal and archetypal elements. Archetypes themselves are unconscious, but they give rise to many archetypal images and archetypal affects, and to drives that shape the course of our lives. They are inborn patterns and centres of organisation that soon grow and blossom in the nurturing earth of the relationship with the mother. Infancy is both a macrocosm of archetypal image and a microcosm of minute-by-minute relationship and feeling that gives body to the archetypal images and lays the foundation of future growth. Jung described the archetypes as a crystal lattice. When a solution of a substance becomes supersaturated, he said, it can suddenly crystallize out at any moment, just by a tap on the beaker, for instance, or it can stubbornly refuse to do so, however much it's encouraged. It's as if there is a lattice in the solution, he says, that can form itself into crystals of a certain form if the conditions are right. A crystal lattice. The crystals may be all the same, or like snow crystals, be all different and individual, but with a basic shape or design in common. Anima and animus are examples of this inborn tendency to form certain patterns arising from archetypes, yet influenced by experience and by learning and by society. To return to woman's meaning. It's the woman's role that's changing most in our society, so above all, it is she who has to find new meanings for herself. The deepest meaning for woman lies in exploring that twofold polarity of both male and female archetypes within her, in exploring the sky as well as the earth. I don't see it particularly as a case of women becoming more assertive and independent, nor as being masculine instead of feminine, although some women may choose that way. It's more a case of being aware of the counterpoint, harmonies and discords of the music that the anima and animus make in their unconscious duet, and of being open to their life-giving forces. I thought the two images of crystals that I began with were very much to do with the woman's animus. They are hard and bright, with definite angles, and their meaning is hidden, but they're obviously valuable and contain a secret. For each of these women, the task was to find the meaning of the crystal deep in themselves. This is, of course, the task of anyone who's in a Jungian analysis. For both men and women, the search is the same at this level, and involves going down to the deeps of one's being, if what we seek is going to be found, that is. Jung speaks of the night sea journey, a journey like Jonah in the belly of the whale, or like the sun's journey under the dark earth between nightfall and the new dawn. For both men and women, this is like entering again, like a child, into the mother's body, into a dark place where there are no words for what is experienced, because it's to do with pre-verbal experience. But the outcome, as for Jonah, is arrival at a destination that is unknown at the outset. Life is certainly a challenge for good or for ill, and we're faced with the necessity of either meeting it or of settling for something that will never satisfy. It's always been so, and men have tried to solve the baffling meaning of life in many ways. The myths that have been handing down to us tell us about these attempts. Many mythical heroes made journeys down to the underworld with varied success. For instance, Gilgamesh, the Sumerian king, was sent by the goddess Inanna to travel to the land beyond the waters of death, to try to find the secret of eternal life. By undertaking this journey, he was trying to join Inanna, the Sky Lady, up with the underworld. But although he found a magical life-giving plant, he lost it on the way home, stolen by a snake in the grass. Another hero, Orpheus, went with his lute in search of his dead lover Eurydice, an animal figure if ever there was one. But she, fickle lady, looked back to joy she'd found in the dark place, and he lost her. Not only heroes made this dark journey, there were heroines as well. Persephone, a girl this time, was borne off to Hades by the connivance of her uncle. She did not go of her own free will, but she knew well enough what she was doing when she ate the pomegranate that contained the fateful seeds, 1 month to be spent in Hades for every seed she ate. She symbolizes the girl leaving mother and becoming a sexual being herself. It's a sort of death, but leads to new life. Pomegranate seeds, it occurs to me, are packed together like crystals. The story of Persephone, or the Kore, or maiden, is about leaving and losing an earlier state for a more developed one. It symbolizes all such losses, like leaving the womb at birth, losing the breast at weaning, leaving childhood behind at puberty and marriage. While Persephone was in Hades, the seeds of growing crops on earth were germinating, and her descent was linked to resurgence of nature in spring and the cycle of the seasons. We are concerned today with organic gardening and feeding the land, keeping the planet green, just as the Maori keep the land content by their songs and dances. In this way, we're not so far from Persephone, and I guess Hades is not far away either. Inanna, Gilgamesh's goddess, was another one who went on a journey to Hades. When I was asked originally to give this talk, it was suggested I might call it the myth of Inanna and the search for meaning. But to my mind, the Inanna myth is not really the place to look for meaning. Inanna went down to the underworld, was killed there, but was rescued and resurrected and returned home. We don't know what the meaning of this myth was. We don't know why she went down. Some say it was to find her dead lover at the end of his year's reign with her, when she had him killed. She said herself that it was to know the below like she already knew the above. To know the below like she already knew the above. We don't know what she did after she came back, but we do know a great deal about how she went and how she came back. I cannot help thinking that this is a lot like life, and certainly like what goes on in analysis. We don't always know what it's about, or where we're going, sometimes where we've been even, because it's a journey into the unconscious, unknown part. But we do know how we went, what happened, and what we brought back. This is the myth of Inanna. I will read some of the actual story because the words are so compelling. From the great above she set her mind towards the great below. The goddess from the great above, she set her mind to the great below. Inanna from the great above, she set her mind to the great below. My lady abandoned heaven, abandoned earth, to the nether world she descended. Inanna abandoned heaven, abandoned earth, to the nether world she descended. Abandoned lordship, abandoned ladyship, to the nether world she descended. We see that she determined to set out both as a goddess and as a person called Inanna. She left everything known, the sky and the earth, and her queenship over all the cities, And interestingly, she left ladyship and lordship, both her maleness and her femaleness, behind. Before she set out, she set up a rescue plan in case she didn't come back, calling on the male gods to help her. Then she put on all her jewellery and finery and set out. This is what she put on. The sigura, the crown of the plain, she put on her head. The wig of her forehead she took. The measuring rod and line of lapis lazuli she gripped in her hand. Small lapis lazuli stones she tied about her neck. Sparkling stones she fastened to her breast. A gold ring she put about her hand. A breastplate which she tightened about her breast. With the pale garment, the garment of ladyship, she covered her body. Kohl which she daubed upon her eyes. Inanna walked to the netherworld. When she came to the first door, she said, "I am Inanna of the place where the sun rises." The doorkeeper answered, "If you are Inanna of the place where the sun rises, why, pray, hast thou come to the land of no return, on the road whose traveller returns not? How hath thy heart led thee there?" There were 7 gates, and at each she was stripped of some article which seemed to represent all her queenly and personal attributes, and all her talismans like the ring and the birthstones, and her actual clothing. So she arrived in Hades naked and vulnerable to the attack of the queen, who was her sister, and I fancy represented part of herself. She died of this attack and remained dead for 3 days. At last the gods rescued her by sprinkling on her the food of life and the water of life. But she still had to make the same painful way back, regaining her clothes and jewels bit by bit at each gate. What can we make of this? Certainly it has echoes of the way in analysis we have to give up bits of our persona and our illusions about ourselves. Inanna got all her things back and her jewels too. I suppose we take the risk of losing our crystals and measuring rods and don't know that we really will get them back. I guess the point is to have been there, to have known the below, to know the depths of the earth and the dark depressed places, to have gone on the journey that brings us closer to the centre of the self. What sort of descents do we, or rather must we, make? I've mentioned the importance of leavings and beginnings as at weaning, puberty, and in marriage. The greatest milestone in life is, to my mind, what Winnicott called the depressive position during the second half of the first year of life. It's a time when the baby gives up his illusion of being one with his mother, which is his heaven, and realizes there are 2 people. He becomes able to stand back and to view experience from a more objective stance, and becomes able to see his fantasies not as absolute, but as if they were true. From this ability comes the chance to understand things through symbols, and to make some sense of later losses and partings. For our subsequent searches for what is lost, like Orpheus, and inquiries into the meanings of death, into ultimate meanings like Gilgamesh, and like Inanna into the meaning of darkness and resurrection, are echoes of that very important time of losses and beginnings at the depressive position. Finding the separate self at the time of the depressive position is a part of the individuation process. In talking about individuation, which is of course finding one's own meaning, I think of 2 aspects. Finding the unus mundus, the crystal, on one hand, and understanding the nature of the body, like the earth for the Mary, on the other. The crystal, in its compact nucleus-like completeness, stands for the unus mundus. Through the ages, mankind has looked for a way to understand how it can be true that each man is a separate person, although circumscribed in scope, but also in some way contains echoes and images of everything, of the whole universe. This oneness with all is the unus mundus, and is usually a numinous religious experience because it's about the self. But religious imagery is never far from the body. Certainly this is so in Eastern religions, but in Christianity too it's absolutely central in the imagery of the Mass and in the writings of the mystics. We are at once brought up against the need to understand the nature of the body, like the Mary woman wanting to know about the spirit in the context of the body earth. One direction this search for meaning has gone since time immemorial is to look for a connection between the body and the sky as the zodiac. The constellations of the stars and the sun, moon and planets have been thought not only to influence us, but to have parallels in the organs of the body. For instance, Aries with the head, and Cancer with the genitals. These ideas all attempted to specify meaning through unification with the cosmos to parts of the body as temples of what is out there yet within, incomprehensible yet somehow recognized and understood. In Dendera, in Egypt, there is a painting of perhaps the earliest zodiac that echoes the Mary creation myth. The Sky Father stretches over the Earth Mother, creating the zodiac. It's an archetypal image of all fatherhood and motherhood, symbolizing, by the coupling of sky and earth, the intercourse of the internalized parents we all have in us. Images of anima and animus are related to this parental pair. If they are cut off from body and from feelings, it's impossible to make sense of spirit, and vice versa. Without the spirit, no sense can be made of the body. It's the same in analysis. It's necessary to consider the growth of the baby in touch with the mother's body, but also to experience archetypal affects and have archetypal images. I'm reminded of a picture I once saw of the anima and animus with their feet stuck in the earth like the roots of trees from which they grew. The tendency to explain the body in unifying ideas of the universe had a counter-motion in drives towards separation, in distinguishing and dividing the body from nature, and with attempts to make maps of a concrete rather than a metaphorical body, and with the growing knowledge of anatomy. The actual structure was also seen as having spiritual connotations. For instance, in Tibetan medicine, bloodletting veins and other different consciousness veins were mapped out. In medieval times, emotions and mental life were thought to be located in the body, thinking in the head, bravery in the heart, and humours in the spleen and liver. This mapping the way round the body was paralleled by explorers who made maps of the world. The mapping is also paralleled in the archetype of the way of individuation, the spiral journey that leads up and down and round towards realization of the potentiality of the soul. The conjunction of body and spirit is one of the goals of individuation. In Jungian analysis, the cut off and undeveloped bits and the bits of ourselves that we put onto other people and see there but not in ourselves are taken back and made our own again. And this includes, of course, projected anima and animus images. This process of individuation, of course, includes the shadow, like the foxy, sharp crystal lurking within. It also includes not knowing, for the shadow of meaning is not knowing. It's all very well to talk about things being crystal clear, and about crystal fountains and crystal balls, and the light of innocence in the crystal globes of the Silmarillion lighting the way. It's easy to get carried away into idealizing these images. Meaning does crystallize things out, but you can't see through crystal. It's all mirrors. Crystal shatters images. Its prismatic surfaces break up light into all the colours of the rainbow. Clear glass becomes opaque if it crystallizes, and strong metal becomes weak. We see through a glass darkly. The real meaning of individuation is a conjunctio or marriage within ourselves, refinding the original parental pair inside in a marriage of anima and animus, of sky and earth, and of the light crystalline things with the dark, depressed and nasty shadow, and with the body. And this is a very feeling, physical experience that includes all we know of mind and body and the unconscious parts of ourselves, as well as the more familiar ways we see ourselves and the face we show the world.